Okay, all right. So Halloween Kills, directed by David Gordon Green, written by Scott Teems, Danny McBride, David Gordon Green, starring Jamie Lee Curtis, Judy Greer, and others. I guess the first question I want to start out with, and I'll put you on the spot, is what do you think the core ingredients are for a Halloween movie?
That's a really good question. Oh man, a good Halloween movie, not a horror movie, just a Halloween
Specific
movie.
to this franchise.
Okay. I thought you meant maybe the
Oh
holiday.
yeah, the Halloween capital H. Well, I guess it's always capital H anyway, but Michael
Okay.
Myers Halloween movie.
What are the ingredients for that? Okay, so that's an interesting question because we're talking about a sequel to a sequel
Yes.
that ignores like 8 sequels. So I guess we only have to look at maybe just the original Halloween as the baseline for what makes a Halloween movie, because we're not looking at all the other ones that happened in addition to that. What makes a Halloween movie? Obviously, Michael Myers. I think that's it.
Okay.
Because I don't even know that Laurie Strode is necessary for the plot. And maybe that's one of the stumbling blocks to why these sequels are the way they are.
Right.
And speak maybe later about that. But I guess what
we'll
I
get
see,
into that.
Yeah, I guess what I see as what is a Halloween is Michael Myers for sure.
Okay.
A stalking presence.
Okay.
Again, I think maybe that's where we're running off the rails with these new ones.
Well, this is kind of a prompt to add some structure to what we will talk about.
Okay.
So, I'm noting that you mentioned, Michael Myers stalking. I would add stabbings with a chef's knife.
Sure. Yeah.
Like that is a specific element that must be in every movie.
Yeah. Well, I guess what is it that made the original so successful? It was, one of the original slashers. The call is coming from within the house sort of thing. I know that's not this movie, but it's a similar, sort of device, I think, that gets played by way of it's Halloween. And so people are wearing masks. So did you see the guy in the white mask? What do you mean? It's Halloween. Of course I saw the guy in the mask. Those are the things that I feel like made the original so successful, is that it felt like it could happen anywhere USA. You just got to have a person crazy enough and I guess patient enough, the way that Michael Myers appears to be in that original.
I think those are great answers. I'll add that I think anywhere USA is a good ingredient, even though this story is specific to a particular anywhere USA. I feel like the general concept of nice old suburbs, tree-lined streets, houses with sufficient spacing that people can run in between them to the backyard and so forth is part of it.
If fluency enough that kids might go trick-or-treating alone, or that a teenage person would be babysitting young kids safely in a neighborhood.
Babysitters in general.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay, this is great to start with. Again, the reason I asked was just to add a little bit of structure. I think that we should just be explicit and ignore any movie that happened between Halloween 2 and Halloween that came out in 2018. So ignore the Rob Zombie Halloween movies, ignore Halloween H2O, anything that happened between we'll ignore, because that's in the intent of these sequels.
Yeah, and I'll just say that I think that trend is one of my favorite things ever. I love the idea of filmmakers just deciding where their film fits in the lore of an existing property. I think it's not always been successful, I don't think, but I really appreciate when a filmmaker says, no, this is a direct sequel to that thing. I'm ignoring everything else.
Ignoring what one might consider canon.
Exactly, yeah. It's almost, I think it's happened a few times, and I know, again, it's not always been successful, but it's a very cool idea, and I think it opens a lot of doors. I would love to see more of that. I
I
think
agree.
once you're beholden to canon, especially something that's been running for decades, it's really hard to make something worthwhile with all those limitations of that.
Agreed completely. And I think that is a good sort of segue to talk about these movies in particular. I should say that I enjoyed the first of these, the 2018 or 2019 one that was sort of the preamble to this.
Yes.
I thought that was solid, and I thought it was really smart that they discarded all of that formerly canon to just tell a new story, and a story that felt a lot truer to the original essence of Halloween, including the elements that we just mentioned. And so the follow-up to what I initially asked is, given the criteria, given the ingredients that we've outlined that are a part of Halloween movie, Michael Myers, stalking, stabby, the kind of calls coming from within the house feeling, suburbs, young kids trick-or-treating, babysitters, and so forth. Do you feel like this movie lived up to those core ingredients?
Some of them, obviously, some of them are unavoidable.
Yeah.
Just by way of being a certain intellectual property. Michael Myers is in it, so
Right.
check that one off the box.
Got that one.
I know mostly,
Yeah.
and I think not a minor quibble, I think it's a major quibble, is I don't understand the tone of this one. And I'll agree with you that I thought that the 2018 follow-up to the original Halloween was a nice follow-up. It was everything you kind of wanted from somebody taking it very seriously, saying Laurie Strode is suffering from paranoia, alcoholism, post-traumatic stress. She's estranged from her family. All those things I would expect to be the reality of somebody's situation, which was really fantastic. This one was kind of tongue-in-cheek, strangely, and I don't know why it was tongue-in-cheek. I feel like it didn't exactly know what it wanted to be. There were a lot of things within it that felt like you're trying to be kitschy, but you're trying to be horror, but you're trying to be funny, and you're trying to be tongue-in-cheek, but you're also want to be serious and have a little bit of poignancy on mob mentality.
Yes.
Which is like, I don't know. It was just all over the place. So I don't know that it had all the core elements. It seemed to stray a little farther away from that. And it almost feels like we probably should have just left it at the follow-up from 2018. Just leave it as the fire trucks are headed to the house and Laurie's like, no, let him burn. It's like, that'd be a great ending because it's open and it's satisfying. That felt appropriate. This didn't to me.
The tone was mixed for sure. I felt that there was a wink quality to it. I think tongue-in-cheek captures it well enough.
Yeah.
Even the fact that they brought the cast from the original, the minor members of the cast, including the real housewife, whose name I can't remember right now, added to it this almost fourth wall breaking quality to me, that then channeled into this overall tongue-in-cheekness that really did not gel for me with the scenes that were intended to be actually horrifying in some way, or actually poignant in some way. I was thinking about, there's a scene near the end when one of the characters discovers that another character is dead and is shocked and horrified and sad. Actually, this happens several times throughout the movie, that someone's significant other in some fashion will be found dead, and they'll be just totally shocked, and they'll be sobbing about this death that has occurred. But that happened immediately after another moment that was totally tongue-in-cheek and kind of just winking at you, like, this is what happens in a Halloween movie, didn't you know?
Right. It cheapens it. It just mutes all of it, because you can't expect your audience to give a shit if you're asking them to laugh 5 minutes ago at the same thing. Yeah, I guess maybe something we should just say, because I know you're dancing around it a little bit, is, can we just assume, like, herein lies spoilers? Like, we're not going to try not to,
Yeah, let's just spoil. Even though I can't think of the characters' names, so the spoilers may not be.
You're talking about the father, Lonnie, right? Being found in
the attic.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be kind of a moving scene. I think. I mean,
Yeah.
it's problematic in many ways. First of all, it should be evident, I feel, when they're going into the house that due to the fact that there was a gunshot, that something went down. But you
Yeah.
have the son kind of going in, seemingly not expecting to find that his dad has been killed, even though that's basically been the trend for the entire night.
Yeah.
And then he finds it and he's horrified and he says, "Dad."
Yeah.
But then immediately after that, he gets killed in a somewhat comical, I mean, horrifically comical way, having his, head brought up and down against I don't know, a banister, I guess.
Yeah, banister. Yeah, it's I suppose it's all rolled into a general problem within this movie, is that collectively, I'm going to butcher the name of it. It's Haddonfield, Illinois. Illinois. I'm not sure if that's what it is, but collectively, this town is full of the dumbest individuals that you could collect. It's almost as if they took the town idiot from every small town in America and said, "No, you live in this town now." And just behave normally to your standard.
Yeah.
And that's just so. If you're not making a movie straight up tongue in cheek, like Cabin in the Woods, that's winking the whole time at the idea that like, oh, this couple's having sex, like they're probably gonna get it next, then you can't do the dumb townsfolk, I'm going in alone thing as a wink, which I feel like this movie was trying to do constantly, and it just did not work.
It didn't
for
work.
me. Yeah.
There were this may just end up being a lot of stray observations and critiques about the movie as opposed to anything super organized. So I'll just like maybe rattle off a thing or two for you to react to. I was really confused structurally by the whole sequence that takes place in the hospital when the mob has decided that it's going to take down Michael Meyers, and you have this kind of one-off mental patient who has escaped that they just unanimously decide is Michael Meyers, and they chase him. And then it's supposed to be this. You have Judy Greer saying, "I promise I won't let anything happen to you." Bad things then proceed to happen to that guy. The mob comes in. Some people seem guilty, and that whole sequence seemed to me to be somewhat immaterial to both the overarching plot of Michael Myers, but also the whole point of a Halloween movie in the first place.
Yes.
Okay, nothing further to say on that.
Yeah,
moving on.
I mean, yeah, it's silly. I think again, here comes a point where we spoke about this last time, how if I want to watch something that is going to address an interesting subject, like mob mentality, groupthink, the zeitgeist, whatever you want to call it, like I'll just watch something better. I don't need that within the context of what I'm already watching. And it's almost
you
like
don't need Halloween Kills to make that point.
Exactly. And it's what's problematic to me is that it wasn't just something that you could infer as, oh, that's kind of what they're trying to do. They leaned into it so hard that that's what the filmmakers were trying to do, is make a comment on that, which it just makes it, it's like, yeah, I'm not going to read the funny pages to have an idea of like, what happens when we die, or whatever.
Geopolitical issue or something.
Yeah, it's yes, that was very silly. It's a shame because I actually really enjoyed at first the moment when that couple leaves the bar and the husband is like, "Oh, I forgot my stethoscope. I'm going to go back inside and get it." And you're like rolling your eyes, like, "Here we go." Mm-hmm. And he's in the back seat of the car. Mm-hmm. Like, I actually really like that part of it because it still was playing with that, who is it? What is it going on there? And I had forgotten about the other patient that had escaped. And I was like, oh, that's a nice setup for like, here's a wild card element that's going to be in this movie.
Yeah.
And then it just ended up being kind of like a pointless, like, we have to wrap that up, Yeah.
Well, the other element of this that I was noticing was how limited Laurie Strode's involvement was.
Yeah.
I wonder if part of it was due to the production taking place during COVID and possibly budget constraints. But when you think about it, Jamie Lee Curtis spends the entire movie, or virtually the entire movie, in a single room. She's only in that one hospital room. And it wouldn't surprise me if they had perhaps, well, I'm not the expert here, but I could see them just doing all of that in a single day, all of her scenes, because she's in it actually a really limited amount. I think to a large degree, it's Judy Greer and the granddaughter that actually are more of the main part of the movie, and sort of just following Michael Meyers around on his exploits, whereas Laurie Strode is just kind of in this one room reacting to events that she's being told about by other people.
Yeah, the answer is on a single day, no, definitely not. That would still take multiple days, but certainly not that much of the production. Actually, yeah, good on you, because I did not even perceive this to be a COVID production. And I would have assumed that maybe it got finished before COVID and then they pushed the release back or something.
Oh, possibly. I don't know.
Oh, I have no idea. I haven't done my research on that at all. But yeah, Laurie and her involvement was disappointing. But, and I was kind of pointing to this earlier when I said I don't even know that Laurie Strode is a necessity for these movies. And my reason for saying that is, well, okay, so it's not quite that she's not a necessity for it, but something I thought was interesting and possibly a missed opportunity is that Laurie is convinced that Michael's coming for her. And they really missed an opportunity, I feel like, for in the 2018 version, is for her to have a reckoning with the fact that maybe Michael doesn't care about her at all, because she spends all these years ruining her own life and ruining the lives of her daughter and her granddaughter by being this paranoid, crazy alcoholic woman, because she's so worried about Michael coming back for her, that when Michael is put into the path of Laurie Strode in the 2018 version, it's by way of like, who is that? He's like a psychiatrist or something that like wants to see Michael out in the world and see what Michael does so he can keep studying him. He ends up getting like his face smashed in or something. I forget.
Something to that effect.
Yeah, it's like he releases Michael and then the granddaughter runs to the house. But basically the point was he wants to bring Michael back to Laurie and then see what Michael does in the world. At least, my apologies, I didn't rewatch the 2018 version before watching this, so like my details might be messed up. However, I thought it maybe would be more interesting if that Michael just didn't care about her or didn't even like give her a second look or didn't go after her. That would be a really interesting comeuppance for Laurie to be like, it isn't about me. Because in this movie, she's constantly saying, he's coming for me. I'm the one that's got to do that. And if that's not the case, that's just more interesting to me. And it leans into this, like, who is evil? Why are they evil? What are they doing that for?
I think that's really interesting. And I agree that would add so much more depth to the story. It would be a really interesting dynamic to explore. That would never happen in one of these movies.
No, definitely not.
Clearly supposed to be a lot more frivolous than that.
Yeah.
One thing that occurred to me as I was kind of reviewing, I was reviewing in my mind what I remember of the deaths that occurred in this movie.
Yeah.
And the deaths are always or rather the variety of deaths is kind of, let me go back. Slasher movies and scary movies that take after the classic slasher movies and scary movies are now such a part of the zeitgeist that anything they might do is kind of a cliche at this point, or it's at least something that the audience is familiar with as a trope. And so these movies can't really rely on being scary themselves anymore. I don't think anybody's expecting to watch Halloween Kills and actually be fall in prey to a jump scare or to actually be like terrified in the same way that we might be the first time we saw the original Halloween. And so instead of that, the movie kind of banks on the idea that, well, we won't be able to actually scare people, but we can show them a variety of horrific deaths. And so all of these movies have to have just a variety of deaths in them. And so getting back to my point, I am curious what you thought about the variety of deaths that we saw, if you felt that that was giving you what you wanted. And then one note was just the way that when I was thinking about these kind of like forced these forced emotional moments that took place where you had somebody horrified by somebody else's death. So many of the deaths in this movie relate to two people in some kind of relationship. When you think about that couple at the beginning, the elder couple that's in the house, you have the black wife, the white husband. He gets killed, and then she gets the fluorescent light stabbed into her throat. It closes with the scene of her kind of basically bleeding out on the floor, watching Michael Myers. I don't even know what he was doing, but basically looking at her husband who had been killed.
Yeah.
You had the gay couple later in the house where one of them had to find the other and sort of be horrified about what had happened.
Yeah.
You had every single death of any significance seemed to relate to a couple in some way. I think that's really interesting. I wonder what they were getting at.
Yeah. You have to wonder if that was purposeful or not, or if it just happened to be that way where, you know, you're upping the body count. How do we do that? Well, how about he murders a bunch of couples instead of just like one person at a time? I think you're absolutely right. These movies are spectacle, and the whole point is you want to see the murderer murder in fun ways, you know, where it's like that's what you go to see. And I think maybe something I disliked about this time, and this is here's your minor quibble, Matt, is to me, Michael Myers behaved a little bit more like Jason than he behaved like Michael Myers. How I seem to remember Michael Myers. Like Michael Myers he's a stalker. He's a little craftier, I think. Whereas Jason is just kind of like this brute, like I arrive, I murder, and then I'm on my way. See you later. There's just that in the original, I don't remember the context of the scene exactly, but there's this brilliant shot where Laurie Strode is like, it's like right before she falls over the banister. And I think his fate is currently unknown to her. Like maybe it's right after she was in the closet, maybe she stabs him in the closet or something. And then she's like all winded and she's sitting down in the hallway, right where the banister is. And behind her is just a dark room. And the first thing you see is a very, very slight bit of the mask kind of coming out of the shadows. And it just stays there for a second until he comes out of the room. And there's something that's more Michael Myers to me, like that sort of like elusive. Sometimes you see him, sometimes you don't. You're constantly scanning the shadows of the neighborhood because maybe Michael's standing there somewhere. And I didn't get that with this. It felt more like Jason, just kind of like he walks, you run, he catches up to you no matter what thing. So the deaths themselves, was I satisfied by them? I mean, sure, you know, I mean, that's why we're watching it. We want to see somebody get pinned up against the wall with a knife or whatever it is. Like that's a pretty easy, I think that's a pretty easy thing to see. And as somebody who spent plenty of hours watching these franchises for that exact reason, like, oh, how's Jason going to kill these people this time? You know, it's, you know, I don't think it's really that hard to imagine up some scenarios that would be worthwhile. I will say that I think I disliked more than I usually do by way of wait. Excuse me.
Bless you.
I disliked the one where, and this is, I feel like I just need to get this off my chest. I need to talk about this scene and I need to just need to get this done. Who in the hell decided to put the doctor and the nurse together with the two former survivors of Michael Myers in the same car together to go searching for Michael Myers? Like who in that committee was like, oh yeah, that's a good set of people to go. It's like a couple who literally have nothing to do with this, and then two people who are already traumatized by the experience. Like, and they just get murdered super easily, no problem. And what I'm leading into is the fact that like, husband's in the car, he's got a knife through the eye, and it's like at any point his wife could have been standing there outside the vehicle as she was, point blank, and given Michael a couple of shots in the back, but for some reason she's 50 yards away walking towards the car shooting at, and then, you know, eventually what does he do? He like kicks the door open and the gun turns and shoots herself in the face. That was the moment where I was like, okay, this is not even going to try to be a good movie. It's just, this is what it is. All right, I guess I'm strapping in for this.
Well, that called back for me to the scene in World War Z starring Brad Pitt. I don't know if you saw it, but there's
I'm not sure I know what you're referencing.
There's a kind of pivotal scene where, Brad Pitt is flying somewhere in the world with a crew of commandos and one scientist to try to sort of unlock a clue to the pandemic, the zombie epidemic. And this doctor who's like really important is walking up the ramp onto the military aircraft that's going to take them away or something. And he's carrying a firearm, and he just basically slips and falls, and the firearm discharges and like shoots him in the head, and he's dead. And it's like totally without ceremony. It just happens like absolutely randomly. It's not even, I don't think, intended to be funny, but you can't help but just laugh at that happening. And I've wondered about that scene for so long, but that reminded me of that, where it was just kind of this like unceremonious, can't quite tell if it's intended to be like really funny in that moment, or if it's how are they playing it? I don't know. And I was really confused for the entirety of this about how I was supposed to feel.
I don't remember that at all. But that's hilarious. And I feel like now I need to revisit that movie just so I can experience that, because that's, to me, that's a writer or a group of writers having written themselves into a corner and then not knowing how to resolve. And I'm sorry, this is going to be way left field, but what that kind of reminds me of, somebody who did a better job of this is there's a brilliant moment in the second season of Avatar, where they're in the Earth King's chambers or whatever. It's right after, I think it's like right after they reveal that Long Feng indeed was like hypnotizing him, or it's like they've got like Appa's foot or his tooth print on his ankle.
Yeah.
And it's like clearly they need to get through the exposition of whether or not the Earth King is going to support them in their path to the Fire Lord. And it's like, you could have that moment be 5 minutes of exposition because it needs it, but instead they do it as like, I support you kids. And they're like, yay, but I'm not going to let you do this. Oh, it's like they just go through it very quickly with that way about it. And it feels almost like the same thing. Is like, well, how are we going to do this?
Well, they turned what would otherwise be an awkward moment in the movie, almost a fumble, into like a pretty funny gag that is still within the tone of the show.
Right. Yes.
I just think in the case of Halloween Kills, there's a little bit of there's just this mix of tones that it's hard to say what you're supposed to feel moment to moment. Avatar is very consistent about having like hilarious kind of throwaway gags like every now and then in every single episode, and so that fits perfectly. But in this case, I don't know if it really does.
No, well, yeah, it's the point is that they did a better job than seems to be happening in this film. And I will say this straight up. I think Danny McBride is hilarious, and I like his work very much. And I think he's been a part of really fantastic projects, but I could feel his fingerprints all over this movie. And I think that's maybe where this goes wrong, is that it's almost like he can't help but be a funny guy, because there's the whole Big John, Lil John thing in this movie, which is pretty funny, like that's pretty legitimately funny. Like when they're both walking around the house doing like their own version of Marco Polo, like Big John, Little John. That's funny. Big John's got a little knife and Little John's got a big knife. Like
agreed.
Funny.
It was very funny.
But why is it in this movie? Why are you doing this now? Save that for some other movie.
You could imagine it being a different property, a different franchise that's
totally
funny type of slasher movie. But they just decided to kind of shoehorn it into Halloween Kills, and here we are.
It's unfortunate, but oh well.
One thing that like I have in my notes that is kind of just from left field is, the original movie. I guess they wanted something scary. They wanted him to have like Michael Meyers to have a distinct look, and so they just bought just an off the rack William Shatner, i.e. Captain Kirk mask, and then just spray painted it white, famously, and that's just been the mask ever since. One thing I don't know is if ever they've asked William Shatner like how he feels that sort of like this like version of his likeness has basically been totally just transposed onto this completely separate thing that he doesn't have any other relation to. I don't know.
I don't know. If you never told me that it was William Shatner, I would not be able to tell. I think that's part of it. So is that a problem? I'm sure he probably loves it. He probably gets a kick out of that.
Sure.
He probably gets even more of a kick out of it if he gets residuals for it, but I kind of doubt that he does. Yeah, I love the design of the mask for these new ones. Honestly, I think that's probably the most effective thing they've got going for them is that, and I mean, I'll eat it up every time Michael Myers puts that mask on. They love that low angle shot of him doing that super slowly and kind of like only seeing the silhouette of it. Like every time that creeps me out. And I think it just looks so cool when he puts that mask on. They do it a lot, but it's all right. Do it. Yeah. Do it 6 times in the movie. I'm fine with that.
I totally agree. The design is really cool. And they clearly know enough about the franchise to be able to deliver those moments that you really want to see. And that I would say is absolutely one of them.
Yeah. So, all right. I have a question for you.
Sure.
I think this is something that the internet is debating on whether or not they like it or not. Maybe I'll be a little bit more pointed. If you can, remove what you know about this movie and the 2018 version and just look at Halloween itself.
Okay.
Is Michael Myers supernatural?
Right. That's very much an issue in this movie. My feeling from, and I can actually remember this from initially watching the first movie, is he couldn't have survived that. And so he has to be somewhat supernatural. There's no other way that he could have gotten up and left the scene where he had just been lying in the front yard after being both shot and thrown out of a window. Like he wouldn't be able to walk after that at a minimum. So he has to be supernatural, was my conclusion.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, it's tough because I think that's something that came kind of later because of the how unrealistic it is that he would be able to get up. But at the same time, it's like, how many movies are there that are pretty realistic with the injuries where they just ignore the reality of how painful a certain thing would be and how a character is able to react to that.
Right.
I think a very classic example, not classic, but in my mind, it's classic because I love this movie, but Denise Richards in Starship Troopers gets one of those things like through her shoulder.
Oh, right.
And it's like at the end of the movie, she's between the two main characters and she's all like, she's happy. She's got her arms around him. And it's like, yeah,
she wouldn't be able to move that arm.
No, not even remotely, but she's like, yeah, she's strutting through like she's on the red carpet and it's like a good day, you know? And I just think about like, man, if I've got a fucking hangnail in my toe, I can't walk. It's like, how could I go to work today? I've got a hangnail in my toe. Like, you know, so I think there's just a disconnect straight up between movie life and real life of like what an injury really does to somebody.
That is true. However, in Michael Myers' case, he was shot, if I recall correctly, multiple times through the chest.
Right.
And then fell out of a window. And that goes past the threshold of even what like movie glossing over.
You're right. You're right. I think, but I guess I bring it up because, and again, I will just generally apologize for my lack of research on this, and I'll just have to take it on the authority of a random comment in Reddit threads, etc. That supposedly David Gordon Green and Danny McBride and whomever else produced these projects wanted to do away with the idea of supernatural Michael Myers, like meaning it to be not about that. Where it's like, yeah, maybe Michael Myers is more of like an Anton Chigurh type where, you know, yeah, he sustained a lot of injuries, but then he left and patched himself up before he got picked up. And
gritty.
Yeah. He's got the gumption to keep going.
Yeah.
Because he's a big dude and like, yeah, you can't put him down. But clearly they abandoned that.
Yes.
You know, by way of him having a mob attack him and then getting up and murdering all of them subsequently after that. Yeah, I don't know. I was just curious because I actually like the idea of him not being supernatural. And I think there is a way in which you can go that, but clearly that's
That's
Just
no
never.
longer in the cards, right?
No.
I was a little
No.
disappointed that they went hardcore and double down on the supernatural side. I too would find it more compelling if he were human. That's somehow more terrifying. It's more terrifying if he's not supernatural, because then you can imagine this actually being a real thing that happens.
Sure.
You know, as a rule, stories about anything of the spirit world, anything metaphysical really that is occurring in like the context of a scary movie, I find much less frightening than very realistic things, because I just know that that stuff's not real.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that I agree necessarily, because I'll creep myself out. Like just the other night, I was thinking about It Follows, and like I know that's not real, not a real thing, but man, it creeps me out. It really does. Like when I think
I'll
about
give you
it,
that.
yeah, it's like that's just bleh, like
that really creeps me out too. I'll agree. It is supernatural. Maybe it just depends on the treatment of it for sure. Maybe I have to half retract at least what I said.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I would have liked for them to be at least more consistent with the idea that he's just a survivor, and you know, yeah. So,
well, okay. So partially because the Zoom call that we're on is going to run out of time, and partially because we've just hit about 30 minutes anyway. I feel like we should sum things up.
sure.
And just like if you want to give some type of review, I'll just say that for me, I was not satisfied by this. I was never scared. I was even bored, I think, for a lot of the movie. There were times when I kind of wished I could have watched it at like 1.5x speed. And so I can't give it any thumbs up. I'm like at best like 2 thumbs in the middle somehow.
Oh, wow.
I think I like the previous movie a lot better, which I think actually had the same writers and directors on it. So
yeah, same creative team.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, again, I appreciate certain things that they did here. I don't want to say that it was a total wash, but it just like as a whole, it felt like a little messy for me. And but I'm still looking forward to the final one.
Yeah, I'm dug in. I'm gonna have to watch the last one. I need to know how they wrap it up. Poor Judy Greer.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. It's how do I speak about this while remaining charitable? I don't know how, really, because I think some of the decisions in the writer's room are reflected on the screen at the intellectual capacity of the townspeople in the movie, where I don't understand why. I just don't understand.
That's like the least charitable thing I've ever heard anyone say after saying I would like to try to be charitable.
I didn't say I would like to. I said how to be charitable.
How to be
charitable. I don't know.
Okay.
Rewind.
You didn't commit to being charitable.
Yeah, no, it's okay. You understand where I'm coming from, though, right?
Yes.
It's like the characters are behaving in ways that just do not make sense, even from the point of view of being tongue-in-cheek about it. It's like, we've already established you don't split up. We already established you don't do drugs, you don't have sex, all these different things. But this movie isn't trying to make a comment or make a wink at those things. These characters are just doing that because they're stupid. Yeah. It's like Lonnie being like, I can't, well, I drove to the house, but I couldn't possibly let my kid go in there. Like, I'm going in there alone, okay? Don't follow me in there. And it's like, okay, well, I don't understand why you didn't just wait.
Very convenient for the writers, though, that situation was.
Yeah, I apologize to the writers. You are at least a step above Lonnie.
Oof, man, brutal.
Yeah, brutal. All right, so thumb wise, I don't know. We're doing 2 thumbs. I feel like this system.
I don't know why I established the 2 thumb for each of us thing. It doesn't
make any sense. We're gonna have to.
Maybe we just each get 1 thumb, I think, and I'm gonna put mine in the middle. Again, I can't go down because there were entertaining parts, but
we have to do something other than a thumb, I think.
Okay, yeah,
because that's a Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert thing.
Okay.
You know, we'll figure it out. You know, 2.6 stars out of 10. How about that?
Okay, that's pretty low. All right. I think I'm below 5 stars for sure.
Yeah.
Out of 10.
Yeah. And that is me saying that having really enjoyed the 2018.
Yes.
You know, I don't think it's a masterpiece or anything. You know, I don't think it's meant to be, but I thought it was a really solid, like, I'm into this. Yeah. I'm into it. Give me more. And then this happened. And it's like, okay, I guess I'll watch the last one because I have to.
All right. So 2.5 some stars out of 10. And I'm going to say I'll say 4.6 stars out of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let us know if there's a better way for us to do this.
Yeah.
You know.
We'll brainstorm on it.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Right. Cool.
Cool.